Talladega, once a wide spot in the road between Birmingham and Atlanta. Since 1969, site of the world's fastest speedway. And it's a beautiful day, 79 degrees, track temp of 116, and bright sun in the sky for 2 rounds of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip. Feels like we just got off the air in Texas, doesn't it, on Monday afternoon after seeing a great race. But now we come to Talladega. We've talked about the increasing track lengths for the new rear spoiler, and how much effect it would have. And I don't know, Darrell, I think it's basically been a non-story. Now we come to Talladega, and everything is different once again.
Yeah, I think where we've been, Texas, for instance, where we all thought that the spoiler may play some effect on the way the cars race, didn't see it there. One of the things you're going to have to deal with here, and Larry knows this, he was here for the test, is do they have the right plate on the car or not? Because nobody really knows for sure how much this big spoiler is going to slow the cars down and how big the plate has to be to offset the aero drag that this spoiler creates. So I think, Larry, I'm just guessing, I wouldn't be surprised we don't see a plate change while we're here this week.
Yeah, we've got a very unusual weekend. This is a total full impound weekend. These guys get 2 practices today. They get their cars ready to qualify and race. They qualify tomorrow, and then NASCAR impounds it. That's the reason you saw this group jump right out there and get in the draft. The group that's going to be watching this practice closer than anyone will be the people in the NASCAR trailer, John Darby, Robin Pemberton, that group, because they've got to make sure that the speeds are not well over 200 miles an hour, because one thing that this spoiler has created with these cars is the approach rate. How the cars suck up is so fast. I know down at the test, driver said, I got there and almost couldn't even get the car woed down before I bumped into the car in front of me.
Yeah, 200 miles an hour, I think, is the magic number. If we start seeing cars over 200 miles an hour in this practice, I think we'll see a change.
Do not adjust your set. Colors are bright in the bright sunlight. Boom at Talladega as Jeff Gordon gets right up behind his teammate. Weren't these two squabbling the last time we saw them? He's up there with Jimmy Johnson. We go to Matt Yoakum.
Mike, from
And we'll get back to Matt in a moment here.
He lost his mic. We found ours. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the last we saw those two, they weren't terribly happy with each other. But here we are in very tight drafting practice already as Joey Logano. Was that Joey getting squirreled up there?
I think,
my gosh.
Mike, we're going to see, I think this is what we're going to see most of this, particularly this first practice there, because everybody's anticipating bad weather tomorrow. Not that that's going to change anything all that much, because it's an impound race, but still you got what you got when you have an impound race.
Yeah, when you unload, an hour and 45 minutes of practice is not going to make you any better. Yeah, I think our go-home guys, they're going to try to see how fast they can run, because their first race is to get in the race should we have qualifying. But most of our top 35 guys, like this group right here, it's all about the race on Sunday.
One thing we're going to look carefully for, and we're seeing it already, as 2 cars, Marcus Ambrose and Joey Logano, jump way ahead of this pack, is the 2-car tango from the last Talladega race, where these bumpers line up front to back. 2 cars could be several miles an hour faster than that whole swarming drafting pack.
Yeah, you know, Mike, you and I were talking about this, and we were trying to figure out why. The why is because with these cars, front and rear bumpers line up the way they do, you don't just bump draft on the straightaway. You can lay it into the guy in front of you and push him all the way around the racetrack. So where you used to have to get off of a guy so you wouldn't wreck him getting in the corner, now you can stay solid against that guy all the way around the track. That's why you see the increase in speed in 2 cars. See, like what you're seeing Junior and Logano doing right there.
Now, it does not work with 3 cars, and the reason is what you almost saw right there. If the 3rd car pushes the 2nd car loose to the right, that moves the front car loose to the left. Somebody's apt to go around. With 2 cars, it works great, not with more.
I think Junior's giving Joey Logano a little education in bump pushing, draft pushing.
Meanwhile, Tony Stewart is up against the back bumper of Mark Martin in the outside lane. We may see Noah's Ark on Sunday, 2 by 2 by 2.
But I can almost guarantee you what we will see on Sunday. The guy that leads the white flag lap, I almost promise you, he won't come back around leading to the checkered flag. He may not even be in the top 10.
If he comes back around at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't even figure on that.
Now, is that on the initial finish or the first, the second, or the third green-white checker?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, all four.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, if this is practice, and look what we're seeing right here now, and this is what NASCAR was trying to police to some degree, not get so wild and crazy in these race cars, in the race, and certainly in practice.
But Darryl, you bring that up, and we were talking on our conference call the other day. How much has changed since we were last here at Talladega? Obviously, we don't have a wing, we have a rear spoiler. We have a restrictor plate change. But the shot that was heard around the world in NASCAR, the fall race here, and it all started in practice. In fact, they parked Michael Waldrop for bump drafting in practice. This time, it's the gloves are off, boys. You police it yourself.
Yeah, and I do believe, though, I think based on what we've seen these first 8 races, there are some limitations of that now. I think the guys took it to the extreme. I think there are some limitations to that. But this, my friends, is what Talladega is all about. This is what we do every time we come here. This is not unusual.
Boy, isn't that 00 car pretty of David Rudiman?
Which car is that, Larry?
I can't find it.
That would be the 3rd car in line on the outside.
You know,
I don't see it, Larry.
It's a shame you can't pick it out.
Can't find it.
What a shame.
I bet you the Texas fans can pick it out.
They're probably still at the racetrack in Texas, Larry.
Oh, you mean it's that big national champions on the hood?
Yes, sir.
The University of Alabama.
I have a hat I'm going to wear tonight that shows the years of all 13 national championships. I want you to count them for me, DW.
I will, brother. You can count on it. I'll be right there for you.
All right. But look how quickly Jeff Burton and Mark Martin got away from the pack because of that tango, that 2-car bump drafting.
And we saw that last year. You know, it happened with Brad Keselowski and Carl Edwards. And that one, of course, was with the wing back then.
Hey, Mike, don't stop him. He's on a roll.
Football, such a silly game. Who's winning practice? Denny Hamlin. How about that? Speed's presentation of NASCAR Sprint Cup practice from Talladega is brought to you by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com and click on Design It, enter it. And by Tornadoes. Bold is how we roll. Marcus Ambrose has the quickest lap of this practice. Joey Logano, David Rudiman, 3 Toyotas top of the board. And that all changes. Jeff Burton goes to 2nd. Logano 4th. McMurray 5th. Hamlin and Jeff Gordon.
Well, the smart guys, you know, if they want to get a really fast lap, they just lay off that big pack a little bit and then close that gap. And that's why we've heard so many times Jeff Gordon and others say, don't pay attention to that scoring monitor when we're practicing.
Right.
Just pay attention to us drivers.
The suck-ups are in front, right?
That's right.
Yeah, a suck-up lap is going to be faster than any tight drafting lap. Sure.
The closing. I tell you though, these guys, they're I guess they're having fun. I think we used to call this fun, but they are using each other up right now. I mean, look at this. Hamlin is laid into the back of Jeff Gordon's car in the 24 there and just shoving him all over the place.
Now, Burton and Rudiman together, they just ran the fastest lap of practice so far. So that was not a suck-up lap. That was a 2-car draft, quicker than everybody else. They've swapped positions, but doing the same thing.
But that speed on that 00 car with that 31 pushing him, it just jumped to the top of the speed chart. And I think NASCAR will be okay with that right there because it's a little over 195 miles an hour average speed.
Yeah, if we can stay right around there, but these are not big packs of cars like what we're going to see. This is pretty limited number of cars. If 2 guys can do that, you get a big pack and get that big run like we're talking about, I think you could see 200 mile an hour.
You know, just to expand on the carburetor restrictor plate just a little bit, is when we ran the Daytona 500, the holes in that plate was 63/64 of an inch. When NASCAR did the Talladega test a few weeks ago with 24 teams, they started with 1 inch and a 32nd, the biggest plate we've ever had on these cars since the inception of the restrictor plate. By the time they ended the test, it was a 31-30 seconds, and they dropped it even more. Now it's a 15-16. So what's the difference between 63/64 and 15-16 besides 3/64 of an inch? It's 40 to 50 horsepower less than what we raced the Daytona 500, yet the speeds are still what they are.
All right, things getting a little quieter, a little less cars out on track than when we started. Krista.
Well, Mike, when the plate goes on, Jamie Mack fills up. The one just coming in, Jamie McMurray, the winner of the last 2 restrictor plate races. I talked to him just a few moments before he got in the car today. He said, yeah, I'm excited when I come here, but it's a cautious excitement. When we come back here, I don't think of standing in victory lane in the fall. I think of wrecking 6 laps in the spring. In order to win, you first have to survive to the end, and the first steps are being taken right now today.
And part of that survival in my book are these 2 practice sessions. Daryl, you and I talk about it all the time. You've got what you've got. Make me about a 15 to 20 lap run. Let's get a tire sheet and a plug check. And if that car feels good, I know what we're going to do the second practice. We're going to go up on top of the hauler and watch.
Well, and the other part of this is why do you want to get in harm's way just practicing?
Right.
You have to. You've got to know what you got. You got to know what how the car's going to handle in a pack of cars. That's where you're going to be all day.
Now let's explain this line of cars. They are all Fords, and that is significant because at this race, the new for late 2009 Ford FR9 engine is being run by all of the Richard Petty Motorsports cars, the Wood Brothers, and the Roush Fenway cars. All the Ford teams have the new engines, and this will be they're lined up on the inside to do perhaps some single car runs to start.
And the other method to this madness is, what if these 2, 4, 5 guys decide they want to drop to the back and run together? And so they're going to go out there, they're going to sort of see how quickly they can run the 5 or 6 of them together. And if that compares to what the front pack can run, they might say, let's fall back to the back of the field, ride around a while, take care of each other, stay out of trouble.
And you know, Mike, one of your best friends at Talladega is tape on that nose. One thing the FR9 engine lets these guys do, it cools better than the O engine, cools better, more tape on that nose.
Supposedly runs better, too.
David Rudiman, Jeff Burton, Marcus Ambrose quickest so far. Tonight on Speed, NASCAR trackside is set up behind the Tri-Oval Grandstand in Talladega. There'll be plenty to talk about when Kevin Harvick stops by the Ultimate Friday Night House Party. NASCAR trackside tonight, 7:30 Eastern, only on Speed.
Actually, we had to go to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Clint Boyer's going to join us on trackside.
Oh, can I see
tonight.
that card, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. And here come the Fords. So far, the only Ford that's been on track are the front row cars. Kevin Conway and Travis Kvapil. David Stremme has been out.
I love it. Look at Kevin Harvick. He says, oh, all the Ford guys want to run together. Well, I'll just go out there and mess with their party then.
Wow. Or the bow tie right off, I hope that's the back bumper. Yep.
It's okay as long as you don't rub him the wrong way.
And that was only 12 laps of practice that it took to rub that paint off. But, you know, you saw Kevin Harvick at the back of the pack right there. And we respect that Kevin Harvick will not be joining us on trackside tonight. Of course, a big announcement coming out of Richard Childress Racing and Penske Racing this year. In 2011, Shell Pennzoil will be moving over to the Penske camp. A huge business-to-business deal for Shell Pennzoil and Penske Racing. So right now, the sponsorship up in the air for the 29 team of next year. So rather than expand on it, Kevin just said, you know, I'm going to wait till the waters calm out a little bit. We certainly respect that.
Well, let's talk a little about that deal and the far-reaching ramifications it has, because Shell going to Penske takes Mobil 1 off of the number 77 Dodge. They will lose that sponsorship. They're going to swap drivers around between the 2, and the 12 will become the 22 with Kurt Busch. The 2, the Miller Lite deal continues. Brad Keselowski will drive that next year. And of course, that gives Shell pouring rights in a lot of the Roger Penske properties. So a very great deal for Penske. Presumably a good deal for Shell, and a lot of question marks. What will happen with the sponsorship arrangement at Richard Childress Racing? What will happen with Kevin Harvick, who's in the final year of his contract? And a lot of those questions that certainly Kevin nor anyone could answer right now. So,
and that's the reason I think he elected not to come.
That's Matt Kenseth carrying Valvoline colors this weekend, and there is Harvick alongside.
You know, just looking at this shot right here, a lot of people, a lot of fans, even a lot of teams relate Daytona to Talladega. But when you watch that shot we were looking at right there just a second ago, I think it shows you the difference. If you went back and looked at an in-car camera shot from Daytona, that place is so rough and has so many dips, the car never quits smoothing. This place is so smooth. And you're just watching those flaps on the cowl on the 17 car, that's the cowl flap doors that go along with the roof flaps aero package when the car gets backwards. That shows you how much the pressure on the front end of that car changes when you get right up behind the car.
Yeah, what it is as long as the air is going over the car, then it keeps those flaps pushed down. But when the nose raises it up just a little bit, air will go up under the car, and when it does, those flaps will open up and relieve the pressure under the hood.
Now we're right at the base of the windshield. There you go.
So that's just air going up under the hood, and that's a release valve for it. It just blows those doors open, and then the air pushes them right back down.
And Mike, the best way that the fan can relate it, if you're going down the interstate and you run up behind a tractor and a trailer, you can almost feel your car starting to buffeting. It's because the pressure on your passenger car has changed behind that tractor and trailer. And
that also, when you see that happen, that affects the under the hood pressure, obviously. And if that happens enough, a driver thinks there's something wrong with the engine, because the engine will start to respond to that air getting up under the hood and buffing the car up in the air a little bit. A couple of things that happen to these cars. With that splitter on the front, if those braces break, that splitter starts to bounce up and down and vibrate. And the driver thinks he's got a tire out of balance or he got a wheel loose. Air here plays a lot of games with your minds as well. It'll make your car move around. Those flaps will open up. There'll be a surge from the engine. That's why you work so hard on the cowl box at the base of the windshield to try to compensate for all those situations. It's another reason why you got to get out there and practice in a bunch of cars. Larry, this is some sort of test. Not sure what the Ford boys are doing. They're not really racing each other so much as they are just trying to hook up here. I think they're working on 2 or 3 things. How's the engine run? Part that you hit upon, how much tape can we put on these cars and run bumper to bumper the way we have to come Sunday? And they're doing it as a group. Hadn't seen that ever at Daytona or Talladega where the manufacturers work together, but that's what it looks like.
So that would make Montoya the Trojan horse in that line, because that's not a Ford, but he's having a good time. There he is in the Tums car, and he peels off. There's the view off his rear bumper cam. And let's check with Krista.
Thanks, Mike. With a former winner from Talladega, your first career win came here. That was 4 years ago. How different is this car? I mean, to fans at home, it may look the same. How different does it feel compared to that car then?
Talking about the new package here at Talladega, it is different, and it's going to change the way we race. More so than the bigger plate and the spoiler, the ability to bum draft. You know, NASCAR basically putting the race back in our hands is going to drastically change, I think, the dynamic of the race. I feel like it's going to make it more exciting. I think it's going to be a better race. You're going to have a big pack like normal, the peloton, if you want to call it, like the Tour de France, but you're going to have a bunch of breakaway guys. It's not just going to be 2 guys. You're going to have, I think, 3, 4, 5 groups of 2 breaking away and racing each other, and then they'll gradually fall back to pack and they'll break away again, especially when it gets down in the race. It's going to be very exciting. It's going to be very hard to predict who's going to win this race. All
right, thanks, Brian. Very insightful analysis provided by Brian Vickers.
Now, I use that term because last year when the Tour de France was going on, I said that pack racing at Daytona and Talladega was like the peloton, I think they call it, in bike racing. And someone quickly pointed out that peloton means to pedal. And so if you're pedaling one of these things around here, you're a little bit better than Fred Flintstone, I can tell you that.
I love his analogies.
Try to inject a little dose of culture and see what happens.
Yeah.
My God.
Shoot you down.
Tonight, Speed brings you the story of Bill France Jr. After taking the reins from his father, Bill was able to expand NASCAR, turning it into a national phenomenon. Don't miss NASCAR Hall of Fame biography, Bill France Jr. Tonight at 8:30 Eastern on Speed.
And you know, I want to say this about that show. I'm sure the same group that did the Bill France Sr. show that was on last week did that show. What an unbelievable show that they put together on Bill France Sr. I tend to believe the Bill France Jr. show will be just as good.
And if you pay close attention, listen to what's being said about Bill Jr. when he took over the reins of NASCAR from his father.
Right.
And then kind of fast forward to where we are today.
Every generation brings new challenges and new opportunities. And that's the way it's been in NASCAR. It's certainly been an interesting ride for 60+ years. And of course, it all comes to quite a crescendo May 23rd at noon right here on Speed when we induct the first class into the Hall of Fame.
I made my first Cup start right here in May of 1972. And everybody said, well, why did you choose that racetrack, that big old racetrack? Why didn't you go? Because that's the race I got my car ready for.
Yeah, right. You were ready.
Started working on my car, got it done, and this was the next race that everybody was going to.
Well, and there's a big difference because today they would not let you start your Cup career at Talladega or Michigan or Charlotte or Texas. You'd be at Richmond, Bristol, or Martinsville.
Yeah, well, of course, I love it. You know, that rookie thing. You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
I didn't know this place might be a little dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, the NASCAR protocol today, Mike, you could not even make your first NASCAR Camping World Truck Series start or Nationwide Series start at Daytona or Talladega. You have to walk up the ladder in the size of racetracks.
And that's one reason. Well, that's not the reason, but it's one reason there's been some swapping around of drivers in the front row motorsports cars. Kevin Conway was not approved to run the Daytona 500. He is approved here at Talladega. And the other change on that team, Robert Richardson, behind the wheel of 37 this week.
Mike, I think we're seeing another prime example of two cars hooked up. Regan Smith in the 78, little wiggle there getting off into 3, and David Ruderman in the double zero. They were way behind these cars, and I mean, it looked like they picked up about 50 horsepower when they got hooked up.
You just heard David say, I'm getting hot. So again, that's probably the one thing that these guys are looking at the most right now. How much tape on the grill?
Let's get an update from Krista on the Ford engine experiment.
That would be Carl Edwards, 99, coming into the garage. We heard him say on the radio, might be an engine issue. Jack Roush, Cat in the Hat, just walking over to the car now to check things out. Carl did say as he brought it back in, he did shut it down. So the engine is off as the team ran out and pushed the car in. But he did say on the radio, an engine issue.
Well, again, you mentioned it, Mike, the Ford FR9 engine. This is kind of a test for these guys, even though there were a few of the Roush Fenway cars, including Matt Kenseth, that raced it in the Daytona 500 back in February.
Well, this engine, the FR9, is definitely better. It's lighter engine, lower CG, lowers the CG of the car a little bit because of the nose weight the engine is, and it's better components. But the thing that makes it difficult for the Ford teams is they have a proven engine that they've been running for what, 25 years, Larry?
I'd say at least.
And so it's hard to get off of that.
There's a lot to be gained, though, with better cooling and the other advantages that you mentioned. So, but it is a work in progress, and it will have to be a calculated decision as to whether or not to run that engine in the race in all of those cars here at Talladega this weekend. Let's flip to the other side of the coin and go from Ford to Chevrolet and to Matt Yoakum back in the garage.
Well, Mike, we were talking earlier, or trying to talk earlier, about the Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson situation. Now, Talladega, built on ancient Indian burial grounds where the weird and crazy happens. That's what took place at Texas between the two with their on-track incident. Now, this morning, at driver availability, both drivers talked about at length about last week. And to sum it up, here are some of the bullet points. First, they both have said that there's much respect between not only both drivers, but both teams. Remember, for the folks at home, these two cars are housed in the same exact building at the Hendrick Motorsports Complex. So there is healthy respect between both. It was hard racing. They've got a great rivalry, which will continue. It's a good one. And guys, the only thing they really didn't talk about was where both are registered for their babies when they're delivered later on this year. So it just seems like it is what it is in the Hendrick Motorsports camp.
Well, all I know, it did my heart well to see Jeff Gordon race the way he did at Texas, because I'm an honest man. I'm probably one of the guys that's beat him up a little bit about complaining about people racing him hard early in the race, and it did my heart wonders to see him race that hard last week.
What we saw Monday was the Jeff Gordon that won 4 championships.
Better believe it.
Not the first driver this year that deserved a win and had it taken from him. But certainly he would have been in contention had the car been there in the final laps. Might well have been out front.
If the guys that deserved to win had won all the races they were supposed to win, we'd have a whole different group of winners right now.
and you'd have 200 of them, right?
That's right.
Okay. David Ruderman, Regan Smith, taste this practice. Speed's coverage of Sprint Cup practice from Talladega. Brought to you by AC/DC, Iron Man 2, the album. Available everywhere now.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about the rear spoiler, because if you look at the rear spoiler like on Clint Boyer's 33 car, it's a little different look than what we saw at Texas, at Phoenix and Martinsville. If you notice, this actually has adjusters on it. Now, every car, when they go to qualify and they go to race, just like all the other tracks, they'll have to be 70 degrees in angle. But because NASCAR puts that huge 16, 17-pound weighted angle checker on there, the teams have to be able to adjust it to 7 degrees. The other big difference, in all the other tracks, the teams supply their spoilers. NASCAR just monitors them. But at Daytona and Talladega, NASCAR issues the rear spoiler. The little difference in size, here it's basically 4.5 inches tall, where like at Texas it was 4 inches. And also here it's 1.5 inches in difference in the width. It's 64.5 at Texas, 63 inches wide, little shorter, a little taller, but a little narrower than what we ran at Texas.
A lot of different paint schemes this week. Going to be hard to follow this race on Sunday. Kyle Busch is in the pedigree dog food car. Marcus Ambrose right behind him, carrying Busch's baked beans on his number 47.
Mike, speaking of Kyle Busch in the 18 car, I love it when a good plan comes together. A few weeks ago, when you, Jeff Hammond, Darrell, and myself sat down at Phoenix and did our brackets for the DirecTV head-to-head competition, we tried to anticipate what the future was going to bring. Round 1 was Texas. Round 2 is Talladega. DirecTV head-to-head competition, one of the teams this week, Kyle Busch versus Kurt Busch's brother.
There's Sam Hornish carrying the AAA on his number 77. And here comes Junior. Out of the way, everybody. Coming through, out of the way. Pardon me.
You know who was surprised by that? Was
everybody.
Jeff Burton in that 31 car. He really took a hard right, opening up a hole for Junior to come through. That middle always looks like the sucker hole, and it sometimes is, but boy, right now it works pretty well for these guys, looks like.
Sure did. Here comes Joey to the outside, and Junior's going with him.
You know, one thing I was kind of interested to see is if the guys are crabbing the cars to the, normally they crab them to the right to get more rear downforce on the downforce tracks, trying to see if anybody's crabbed it to the left to try to get that rear blade kind of out of the air on the right-hand side. I haven't been able to see if they're doing it. They're only doing it slightly.
And I don't know where a lot of the teams ended up, but that was a little bit of some of the things that teams were doing down here in that test a few weeks ago.
It's not as dramatic crab to the left if they are that what we see sometimes to the right on the downforce racetracks.
Well, when you've got that much rear spoiler and you've got the stiff rear springs in the car like NASCAR mandates, this track has a lot of grip. It's very smooth like we talked about. Everyone's car is going to drive good. You won't hear anybody complaining about the way their car drives. It's all about what you can do to help the speed of the race car.
I was watching the shot we had of Jimmy Johnson, and normally if you're at a really intense kind of hanging on to racetrack, your hands, your fingers would just be wrapped around that steering wheel with a death grip. Look how relaxed he is. Look at his hands. He's just pretty loosely laying on the wheel. There's not a lot of physical effort that goes into this racetrack. It's all mental. You have to be on you have to pay close attention, make the right moves, see what's going on behind you, beside you, all around you, all the time to be a really good restrictor plate racer.
And in today's cars, look, Darrell, you don't have the peripheral vision that you had in the cars that you raced.
Yeah, well, this seat, as a matter of fact, that's a pretty small headrest when you look at some of these seats that the guys are using now. And I wouldn't be surprised that that's not shrunk down a little bit for that very reason, so he could see better to his left and his right.
Now, one of your best friends at this racetrack, like Kyle Busch's best friend, will be Jeff Dickerson, his spotter up on top of the main grandstand. Spotter plays probably a bigger role than anybody on the race team during this race other than maybe the driver.
Now it's a mile from the spotter stand out to the corners. Do you still run 2 spotters here?
Different teams do different things. There's some guys that prefer to have 1 spotter in his ear and 1 spotter only. If you use 2, you got to be careful you don't talk across each other.
And they only do that on race day.
Right.
1 over here, 1 over there on race day.
Saturday night, May 22nd, the stars come out, the gloves come off. The NASCAR Sprint All-Star Race on speed. $1 million on the line. Checkers or wreckers. Don't miss it. Saturday night, May 22nd, only on speed.
Ought to have a race like that once a month. No points, just money.
Now here's the Bam Bam Alabama car bamming his teammate. Watch this.
This is roughing the punter right here. I mean, you know, roughing the kicker.
I don't think it was quite this calm a little bit ago.
And here's the replay a couple laps ago. Same 2 cars.
What's the blue car on the outside right there? Martin Truex Jr. in the 56. Get the good stuff. Almost got more good stuff than he can handle.
And Mike, you know, that's the one thing these drivers have to police. Is bump drafting is one thing, even with the bumpers lining up. But when you're driving off in the corner and you've got that car, what we call in yaw, turning the steering wheel, that's where you got to back off just a little bit. You got to do a little give and take with this bump draft.
But that's why 2 cars can be so fast. Is you can push each other all the way around, Larry. You never get off the guy in front of you.
As long as you stay touching, it's not a deal. It's when you back off and then bump them again as they're getting off in the corner. That's where you get in trouble.
Yeah, it's like somebody when they want to give you a push start, you know. You got to be sure they get into you solid and not beating the back bumper off your car.
Now, if we're going to push all the way around, what does that do? Now, look at Kevin Harvick. Look how little air can be getting to the radiator of his number 29. What's that do for your temperatures for that second car?
That's one of the biggest things they have to learn in this practice session. It's the one thing that the crew chief and the engine tuner will be monitoring the closest. It's the reason you have to put your car in this configuration to find out just how aggressive you can be with that tape. But no matter what temperatures you show today, you pull a little bit more off come race day because you know it may run a little bit warmer.
Better be safe than sorry. That's the main thing about the tape. One thing I'm noticing, and again, we talk about that rear spoiler and how it's moved the pressure point on the roof forward. I'm seeing more cowl flaps popping open today than I think I've ever seen before. Seen a number of cars popping those cowl flaps. So there's something going on aerodynamically a little bit different than what we've seen down here before.
I think it's because, A, this car poked such a big dirty hole in the air, and then when you put that big rear spoiler, there's no question that rear spoiler, just look at it versus the wing, it's a lot more aero drag. It's poking such a dirty hole in there, I think it just changes the pressure on the nose of that car behind it so much. That's the reason those cowl flaps are winking so much.
Tony Stewart, the Old Spice Matterhorn colors, but I was watching Jeff Gordon and Jeff Burton go around the racetrack for quite a while. Gordon was pushing, but not in the corners. He was pushing the car ahead down the straightaway, but not in the corners so much. Interesting.
Well, I think it depends on where you are, Mike. If 2 cars get hooked up and the outside is open, like we see, you can go around the outside, 2 guys can pushing each other. But if you're in traffic,
they were in the middle.
Yeah,
you're
if
right.
you're in traffic, you got to get off that guy because you can't take a chance on getting him bobbling and getting him into somebody.
Now let's see Gordon and Smoke against. This almost looks like Bruton's 4-wide, except it's 2x2. You know, and it's not a drag strip. It's Harvick as the pusher, or as the pushee, and that kind of goes away as Stewart and Gordon continue to go around.
Just remember, this is all fun and games until somebody gets wrecked. And then it's a hold. Then everybody has to change just to back it down a little bit.
And if you look at that shot right there, this racetrack is wide enough for almost 5 wide. But what happens in the race is what we saw happen to Martin Truex Jr. a while ago. Car gets a little bit sideways, pops up about a lane or so, or half a lane,
right.
And then that's when we have the big one.
Newman, Kane, Montoya.
Yeah, because I don't care how good you are, how much skill you got. When that car jumps sideways with you, your first instinct's to let off. And when you do, it just causes that chain reaction. Guy behind you hits you, and here we go.
Now what happens, as might be happening to Jeff Gordon right here, is when you've got a tiger on your tail and maybe you'd rather not.
And that's a tiger on his tail that's trying to figure out if the same thing will work this year as it did 1 year ago when he won the race here in the spring.
Oh, it'll work.
Well, not the entire episode on the last lap.
Yeah,
Two cars hooking up together.
Yeah, the two-car breakaway.
I just feel better if there was no yellow line rule when you come off turn 4 on the last lap.
I guess come Sunday, your friends are going to be where you find them.
Exactly. May not be teammates either.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile brings you an inside look at what's happening now inside the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. David Rudiman, fastest lap in this practice session at 198.4 miles per hour. For more, check out NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile at sprint.com/speed. Krista.
Well, we heard Carl Edwards talk on the radio that he had an engine issue early in that practice. We know it's the new Ford engine you guys are working with. What did it sound like, or what is the problem that you guys are dealing with right now?
Well, they looked at everything. The filter looks good. It looks like everything's all right in the valve train, but something in the car here is just is vibrating enough that it never clears out and gets that smooth smooth run that it usually has. So we thought, we want to be cautious. We got 2 practices. We checked the valve train. The guys say it's running well up there, so it might be a drive shaft or something like that vibrating so bad that can't get to full speed. But it's better to figure these things out in practice. So hopefully these guys will get the Aflac Fusion all lined up and we'll be fast in the next one.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Krista. The fastest of those Fords right now is Casey Kane. He is 15th. A.J. Allmendinger 22nd. Then Sadler, Reagan, and Biffle.
And he actually had one of the fastest Fords during Daytona 500 Speed Weeks. If you'll remember, he won one of those Gatorade Dual races. He got caught up in a wreck, I think, in the 500, but he was fast all during that week.
Yeah, and one of the things that drives you crazy on these restrictor plate cars particularly is a vibration. Because a lot of times you try to take as much friction and vibration out of the car as you possibly can. You want everything to turn as free as you possibly can. Even rear end angle, the angle of the pinion, you'll even take some of that out. And so sometimes you do all that and you end up with creating a little bit of a vibration problem. Look at those cowl flaps on the 24 popping open.
And I will say this, that's not the first time we've heard of the 99 complaining about a vibration at a restrictor plate racetrack.
Bumper cars at Talladega, Matt.
Mike, you talk about the different agendas up and down the garage. We've seen teams run in packs. And for Jeff Gordon earlier, he didn't really want to run in a pack. It's not that he had issues of any way. It got them off their agenda, what he was trying to work on. He wanted to be more in single car runs, and that's what he's done recently. But now he's confident where he is. He dropped to the back. He's running in the middle of the pack now with a 31 of Burton a little earlier. But he's pretty pleased. But it's just different agendas up and down the garage lane of what you're trying to work on, trying to get the speed out of your car.
Tell you what's fascinating to me is as you look at these cars go around the track, look how flat that car sits to the racetrack. It's not tipped up on the left or tipped up on the right. That car is just absolutely sealed, and it's not just that way on the straightaway. They are able to maintain that all the way around the racetrack.
And that's a real science, because as I was speaking of a while ago, NASCAR mandates the rate of the rear springs, 550 pounds. They issue the teams the rear shocks. So what you have to do to get that attitude of the car right is work with the front springs, the front shocks, and more importantly, that front sway bar or anti-roll bar in the front.
And it's amazing, Mike. I mean, we used to think that 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches was a big sway bar, 1.5 inches. These guys now, I don't know, Larry, how big are these sway bars? 3 inches?
As big as the tube will accept. Yeah, 2.5, 2 3/4 up to 3 inches. And Mike, on the attitude of that car, it's like walking a tightrope, because if you get the nose too low, it means the back of the car's jacked up, and that's going to hurt the drag. But if you have it where it's too high in the front, that's going to let a lot of air under the car, and that's going to hurt the drag.
Well, let me think. You want the car to fly like an arrow with all the weight on the nose and down low. There isn't much lower than the sway bar, is there?
No, there isn't. And that's one reason that they've been building these new cars. They just keep raising everything up. And then they find out what the next thing to bottom out is, and then the next new car, it's raised up.
All right, we're just about to bring the flags out to end this session.
You know what else is raised up every time you do that? The price.
Well, that too.
It goes higher and higher.
Looks like David Rudiman is going to win practice with a lap of 198.47 miles per hour. Regan Smith 198.46. Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton, and Marcus Ambrose were the fast 5 in this practice session. We'll come back and wrap things up from the first Sprint Cup practice session at Talladega. Kyle Busch coasting into the garage area. The face shield's up, the gloves are off. Juan Montoya walking back in after his practice session. Kevin Harvick debriefing. So what do we learn here? Well, not very much, because we didn't have any single car runs, so it's hard to know who's fast, but we sure do know who can bump draft.
But that's what I love about this impound type race weekend. I promise you, we won't have a clue who has a shot at this pole tomorrow at 10:30 local time until we have qualifying. We won't know today.
45 cars took part in practice.
Right group of cars together. These cars will run 200 miles an hour in a pack. That's flirting with a change.
Now NASCAR brings several different sizes of restrictor plates to Talladega, trying to adjust things in the interest of competition and safety.
And you don't have to change it much, because 1/64th of an inch in diameter is about 12 to 14 horsepower change.
Carl Edwards didn't get many laps. You saw him down there toward the bottom of the list after he went to the garage to check out that engine. And here are the drivers who must qualify on time tomorrow. Rain is in the forecast, so it'll be kind of questionable, but that is how they practiced.
Robbie Gordon was in the top 35 last week. He's out this week by 1 point, I think it is.
Wow.
Good to see Michael Waltrip here trying to make this race here at Talladega.
Mikey, he likes some restrictor plates.
Coming up next, NASCAR Live, and a little later on, we will have the second and final practice session for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series live here at Talladega.